Hey guys, I am here with a review of Perfect Lies by Kiersten White, the second book in the Mind Games duology. Now, just a quick note, this was a duology that was very clearly meant to be read as such. If you have not read the first book, I highly recommend it. And if you don't want to be spoiled for it, you should not watch this review because it's very, very difficult to talk about this book without spoiling anything in the first book. And if you're interested in a review of that first book, I will go ahead and link it up in the cards for you. Now, this book follows our main characters of Annie and Fia. And following the events of the first book, Annie is now someplace safe off of her school's radar, and Fia has gone back with the intent of taking this school down from the inside. Um, Pardon me, I am getting over a cold. But so let's dive right in and talk about the world building. It is still very minimal. So the first book didn't have a ton, and this does not add all that much more. The one thing that I was really hoping would get answered is why these girls have these special abilities. Essentially, why do some of them see visions of the future? Why do some of them have telepathy? Why can some of them read your emotions? Why does Fia have her perfect instincts and we are given nothing? We still don't know. It's just some do. That's kind of what it is. And the only thing that we're kind of given is that having a vision of the future is functionally very similar to having a seizure. And that is a subplot point in this book, and so we do find that out, but that's really all we get about these abilities in general. I mentioned before that these were definitely meant to be read as a duology, and in along with that, you cannot read this book without having read the first one, partially because all the world building and character development and motivation kind of setup was done in the first book, and the author does not go back and retread that for you. And so, for example, it's not, if you haven't read the first book, it would not be entirely clear as to why Fia is so bent on taking down this school, because we don't spend time establishing that this school is evil, that makes you do evil things and all that kind of stuff. And so you can't read it by itself. And so and we're not given all that much that's new. So talking about the plot, that Fia storyline of her taking down the school is the main storyline. That's what this book is about. It is what we would have that's what you expect from the end of the first book. You know that that's what's going to be the second book, and that is the focus of this second book. And honestly, going into it, you know she's gonna succeed in some way, right? We know that this school, at the end of this book, the school is not gonna look the same as the beginning of the book. We don't know if she's going to win. We just don't know how she's going to win. And we don't know if she's going to be okay at the end of it. And then on Annie's side, she does actually have her own kind of sub storyline. So basically, at that end of the first book, Fia stabs Annie and says, "I need you to be dead." And so Annie plays dead and is taken in by the group that was helping Fia. Well, Fia never told her why she was doing this. And so Annie doesn't know, and Annie doesn't know what Fia's trying to accomplish. And so she has no idea what Fia is doing. And so that's her main storyline, is what is Fia doing? Because it looks like Fia is going back to help this school, which doesn't make any sense at all. And then along with that, this is the first time that she's ever been separated from Fia for any and separated from her other caretakers. And so she is having to find out how to be a functional adult. She is blind, and she has always been told that, like, maybe not through words, but definitely through actions and how people respond to her, that, you know, she needs somebody there to help her and protect her because she can't do it for herself. And so this her storyline was a little bit of self-discovery in, like, oh no, I am a capable individual, and I don't need to have anybody else there, um, even if it makes it easy. It can make it easier, but I don't need somebody there. And so I thought that that was very interesting. But that's really all that this book is about. There is nothing extra. It's still a very, very lean kind of book. I mean, it's 230 pages. We don't have a ton of time to be, you know, diving into anything else. So getting into the structure and writing style, it is still divided up into chapters that are Annie's and chapters that are Fia's, and we switch back and forth. Interestingly, Fia, her chapters start 5 days before the end of the book. And Annie's chapters start 4 months before the end of the book. So her chapters skip forward a little bit more than Fia's do. And at the very end, they converge and we see them at the same place at the same time, kind of thing. And I thought that that was an amazing choice by the author, because it was really, it allowed her to really drive home some pretty big points, and for us to hear from Fia, for example, what she is saying happened, and then actually see what happened through Annie's eyes, which one of the things that ends up happening is it really drives home this point that Fia is an unreliable narrator, which we already knew, because whenever Fia thinks about Annie, she always thinks of it in terms of, I killed Annie. Annie is dead. I killed Annie. And she has to do this because if anybody is reading her mind, you know, they need her. She needs to make sure that she's protecting herself. She can't think about, like, burning the school down. She can't, you know, have any emotions about it. She can't make any plans, because then anybody who works at this school could potentially see what's going on and derail that plan and know that that's what she's trying to do. So she can't do any of that. And so how she thinks about things is very, very specific, and it's designed to, you know, throw off all these people, the people who have telepathy, so that they don't know what she's actually planning. And so, but that does make her a very, and because we are actually in her head, that makes her a very unreliable narrator, because we're just hearing what she's saying in her brain, not necessarily what actually happened. With that unreliable narrator aspect, I actually really enjoyed it, and I don't usually enjoy unreliable narrators. And in this case, it's mostly because I didn't feel like, or I guess when I was reading it, I could tell I was being conned a little bit, but it was more like I was only given a very small portion of the picture, and then later when I was given the full picture, I understood what was happening, and that was good. It was very similar to the TV show Leverage, if you've ever seen that. But so it was like we just didn't see everything that was kind of happening in the background. So I could tell I was being conned, but I never felt like I was full on being lied to or jerked around. And so I was actually really okay with it. And when I got to the end and I understood what was going on, it was just like, oh, that's really cool. And I kind of wanted to go back and start from the beginning again and try to see if I could pick up all the details that I had missed that support, you know, what Fia was doing. More stylistically, Fia's chapters are, if you did not enjoy it in the first book, you're not going to enjoy it in this book. They're still a mess because Fia has to think about things in very specific ways to keep everybody off of her track. But also Fia is kind of a mess herself. And so it really drives home that point of she has been made to do some pretty horrific things, and she doesn't feel good about it. She feels really awful, and she's never dealt with these feelings. And so she is a mess about it. So If you didn't like that, it's going to be more of the same. Um, which leads right into the characters and character development. Fia is a mess. She walks into this book a huge mess, and she breaks herself just a little bit further in her pursuit of this absolute obsession of a goal. And in taking down, actually, she's trying to take out the head of this school to kind of make the school topple, right? So she doesn't have a whole lot of character development because that's really all she is. But the nice thing is at the end, we are given some hope that she understands that she's been in a really bad place and that she needs to go do some stuff for herself to kind of start the healing process. And I like that we were given that hope because I really just wanted to like hug Fia and say it's going to be okay. And so it was nice to see that it's not necessarily going to be a continuation of the same for her. But the real big development happened with Annie. Like I said before, she has been, I mean, honestly, she's very naive and has been very sheltered her entire life because nobody tells her what's going on. Because, like, there is that idea of, oh, she's blind. What can she really do? And so it's not necessarily her fault, but it is like a problem that she needs to deal with. And she starts finally dealing with it because she is with a bunch of people who are not willing to coddle her. They don't have time for that. And so she's got to learn. Furthermore, there is a character that pushes her that says, why don't you learn things like self-defense? Yeah, you might not need it, but you might also. We're in a really dangerous situation. And she's like, but I'm blind. And he's like, okay, yeah, that's a hindrance. Like, you're not going to be able to see your attacker and you're going to have to adjust how you deal with them. But that doesn't mean you can't learn anything. And that kind of push really sent her, helped her start this journey of realizing that yes, she is capable and she can do all these things. And what I really like is that at the end of this book, she starts making her own choices. And when we get to the end of the book, one of the big choices that she makes for herself really puts her on equal footing with Fia. And it changes their relationship a bit because up until this point, Fia has always seen herself as Annie's protector. And Annie hasn't necessarily seen it that way and doesn't necessarily agree with it, but that's how everybody treats Fia, and that's how Fia sees herself. And so she didn't really rock the boat. But that choice put them on much more even footing in their relationship, and that was really, really good to see. Annie did not finish her journey in this book, which I think is very realistic. It was only 4 months timeline. It is going to be a journey. She is going to need to learn a lot of stuff. So, but it was really good to be able to watch her take those first crucial steps. Other than Fia and Annie, it's all secondary characters, and they're very much secondary. There is not a whole lot of character development there. I mean, to be perfectly honest, there's not a huge amount of character development for Fia and Annie either, but there is almost nothing for the secondary characters. We were introduced to a new character who I actually liked, but then it felt like she was really just a foil for Fia, and it was like, okay, well, whatever. I guess we're just not going to focus on the secondary characters at all. And then lastly, there was a romance. And I just thought it was not really, it was there. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't like, it didn't add a whole lot. It was not really necessary. But that's what we got. I loved this book. I thought that this was a book that was very, very interesting. If I'm being honest, I loved it 5 stars much. But I recognize that you have to go into it with the right frame of mind. It doesn't have a whole lot of world building. It doesn't have a ton of character development. It doesn't have a really wide scope for the plot. It's very narrowly focused. But it does some really unusual things, and it does them very, very well. And so I enjoyed it 5 stars. I think if you include some of the negatives, it's probably more like a 4-ish book, give or take. And, and but like if you go in knowing that that's what you're going to get, I think you'll be much, much better off, and I think you'll enjoy it a lot more. Um, but that is what I have for you for this review. Let me know. Has anybody read this? Please come talk to me about this book. I am dying. I would love to talk to somebody about it. Um, and if not, does it pique your interest? Why or why not? And I guess I will talk to you guys soon. Until then, I hope you have happy reading, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.